Hi everybody, welcome back to Awakening Health. My name is Dennis, and as many people know, I do a lot of work from the beautiful island of Koh Samui. And every so often we work together with a group called Samui Real, who are a really great group of critical thinkers who have a vast range of knowledge, especially about the things going on in the world at present. We also happen to get some guest speakers arrive in person on the island who have very high profiles in relation to spreading the truth. And somebody who has come along and delivered an absolutely great presentation last night to our group here in Samui Real was a man called Kelvyn Alp, who is responsible for a news media outlet called Counterspin. And he has been very gracious with his time, and we asked him as a group to kind of for him to give some more deeper insights into what's going on globally. And in order to facilitate that, we've got a core member called Dr. Eamon McKinney, who is going to ask Kelvyn some great questions, and I'm going to record this, and I think everybody is probably really going to enjoy the end result. So Kelvyn, welcome, thank you so much for joining here.
You're welcome.
Eamon, Dr. McKinney,
thank you.
I'm going to leave you guys to it.
So, thank you. Your talk will be available for people that want to catch the travails you went through, your fight, etc. So that'll be available. But what we didn't get into last night, I wanted to ask you. So you went to Russia, where you met some of our other friends, Pepe at the time.
We were at the time, because I co-founded Counterspin Media, become the largest alternative media in the country rapidly, because facts and evidence-based is what we stuck to. Not too much speculation. Since then I've moved away and created Pariah Media, because I want to maintain the hard-hitting, no-nonsense, get-to-the-point journalism, rather than, and not the flaky stuff, you know what I mean? I'm not into the flake stuff. If you can't prove it, it's not real at the moment. But like anyone else, if you come with credible evidence that challenges my belief, I can have a paradigm shift. And I think that's the way to do it. Just like here, in Samui Real, you have a whole lot of people have a whole lot of knowledge, and when you pull it together, you can find the common denominator. That's really what I'm going for. When I was in Russia, with Adrian McRae as well, with, like I say, Pepe Escobar and some Mwala, some great people. And all the talks were good. You know, people got up and gave their talks, but that's never where the good information comes from. The good information comes when you're out in the reception area, or you're at the dinners, when people are more free to be themselves and open up. And there's definitely a common thread that the West is 100% absolutely stuffed. We are corrupt from the ground up. It's like a parasitic organism that just sucks the lifeblood out of you. And you're nothing but commodities to these people. You're traded, you name it. I mean, and if you dare question the narrative, they'll come down on you like a ton of bricks. If they're in the wrong, they exhaust everything you have. They expend all your money, all your energy, trying to fight for truth. You never quite get it. Most people never achieve it. They're usually bankrupt or something like that. So the system is always centered around money. And in Russia, they're looking at things at a completely different level, and that's what I liked. Because we grew up with the usual Russia's the bad guy. In all the movies, all the Hollywood movies, Russia's the bad guy, you know. And now, of course, China's the bad guy, and Iran's the bad guy, because it doesn't suit the West, and with their plans for domination. They want full spectrum dominance over everything. Energy, finances are the two main ones. Everything, nothing else can work without those. If you want to stop wars, cut off the money supply, it's all peaceful. You get two combating armies ready to go to war the next day. You walk along the front line of each one and you give them $1 million and see how much turn up the next day to fight. They won't. Most it's usually the poor people or the ones with psychological problems that want to go out there and actually kick things up. Or they've been sold an ideology and had a whole lot of propaganda, sustained propaganda over time to change their mind and have them maniacally focused on one particular aspect, and they see nothing else. And that again is problematic. And the West is excellent at propaganda. You have to give it to them as far as that goes. Excellent. Russia's been absolutely restrained. I've got to give it to them. They're probably, I don't think most normal people realize how restrained they've been. They could have wiped that place out fast. You know, they could have just carpet bombed the place and had it all over with. But their intention isn't to kill, you know, randomly. It's to take out strategic Western assets, because that's what it is, Western assets, causing a problem. It's almost like they want to recreate the Khazarian Empire, and we know who's behind that. They're the usurpers sitting in Israel at the moment, claiming to be Jews, and, you know, causing a whole lot of untoward activity all over the world. And we see that everywhere. They're everywhere. I mean, there's an old saying, if you want to know who rules over you, find out the ones you're not allowed to criticize. And in a lot of countries, they're starting to suppress anything where you become anti-Jew because you're anti-Semitic. Well, hang on, aren't the Israelis bombing Gaza? The Palestinians are Semitic people. So by virtue of their actions, the Israelis are anti-Semitic.
It's hard to talk about the subject without discussing Trump, so this might be a two-part. What's the feeling about that in Russia and France?
One thing the Russians are, they're very diplomatic as well. They know how to do diplomacy. In fact, the Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, he gives master classes at. He's probably the best in the world that I've observed, and they're not afraid to call a spade a spade. And I think Ukraine's, well, it's messy, isn't it? I mean, Zelensky was prepared to do a peace deal prior until Boris Johnson turned up, and of course then you've got Newland from the American side. All they want to do is they keep wanting to stoke it. And it's all about, I think, you know, utilizing or depleting Russia's armaments for another front they'll open up later. That's what I believe. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. How Trump will bring it to an end. I mean, I've got to see it to believe it. It looks like deals have already been done in the background. If you have a look at Syria and the Ukraine, it's almost like there's going to be a trade-off. Russia, you take Ukraine, leave Syria to those guys, and then they'll just foment more problems later. You've got the Greater Israel plan that takes part of the country that the Ottoman Empire expansion wants to take as well. They'll soon come to blows. But at the moment, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and that sort of seems to be how it's playing out. They forget that there's actually innocent people on the ground, both sides, who continually suffer while they play this chess game out. They've certainly gone above and beyond to try that, but you got to give it to Russia. They're like I said, when I went over there, and I decided to just go out of the hotel one night for about 3.5 hours and just walk the streets. You know, people told me before I went over, be careful, you know, they'll rob you, they'll take you, they'll chop your heads off and all that. So I walked the streets and it couldn't be any more different. You know, they weren't exactly the most smiley people in the world, but they weren't exactly arrogant or anything like that. I went into a shop because I had a bit of windburn on my lips, so I was trying to speak the language, looking for something to put on the lips, moisturize them. I went into a shop that sort of read supermarket, so I thought that would be a place to find it. I went in there and it was almost like we just did sign language, and then they understood what I was talking about. I got the product and away I went. It was really good. You know, couldn't be more helpful. Yeah. Stark contrast to some countries you go in and they're sort of real short-tempered. And at least in Russia, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. There's no gender confusion there. You know, we're in New Zealand. We've got people who don't know whether they're boy, girl, or can toaster. You know what I mean? They got little litter boxes in classes because of these new things called Furbies, who identify as cats. I mean, what the piss and hell is going on there? It's like, holy snap and sheep shit, something seriously wrong. And this is the Marxist crap that's coming to just decimate people's identities. You know, the bankers take your basically, they take your soul, because without them you don't work. They decide, you know, who wins and who. It's like all these. We were talking before about all the economic crashes around the world. Yeah. Well, the banking system's got a systemic built-in flaw anyway. It's designed that way for the mass transfer of wealth in periods. It used to be about 40 years, and it's just quickening now. Because, you know, if I'm your bank and you come to me and you say, I'd like a $100,000 loan, I haven't got any money when you come in. I'm a bank. I commit, you know, money laundering basically, and I'm a fraud. But because you're coming in, I'll get you to sign something called a mortgage agreement or a promise to pay, you know, and then I treat that as an asset on my books, and I create a digital $100,000 in your account, which you have to pay me back at interest. Problem is, in that equation, the interest is never created at the time of the loan or any time in the future, so there's a net deficit in the economy immediately. Can you imagine that millions of times a day happening? You cannot pay it. So what happens? You start having them as muppets, put in the ear of the politicians, privatization. You got to sell your people's assets to us, or you know, government can't handle business, so you really got to put it in the private market. It'll be cheaper. It never is. It gets more expensive, and this is what's happening across the Western world. Of course, in New Zealand, the whole big argument about colonisation. The local Māori, who aren't Indigenous, by the way, as much as they want to rant and rave about it, we've got archaeological proof of that, and bloodlines even. They're saying, get out colonisers. Well, hang on, there ain't a full-blooded Māori there. No Polynesians anyway, there's no such thing as a Māori blood group. But they're so cross-pollinated, they could be a bloody garden. Half of them got like 11% Polynesian, and they're claiming to be oppressed Māori. You know what I mean? They forget that they're made up of everything else. So if you want to decolonise, your leg, chop your leg off and put it on the boat back that way, take half your head off and send it over to, you know, Scotland or whatever, and then maybe we'll do that. But what I say to them is that just because your version of colonisation come wrapped in a white face, don't think we're all like that. Half of us have been fighting that crap for longer than you. You're Johnny-come-latelys to have been oppressed.
Yeah.
Like the Irish have withstood that crap for much longer.
Well, we were talking last night about Ezra Pound. And Ezra Pound said the central tenet of Western economies and government for the last 400 years has been usable, and that's the cancer.
Yeah.
That's why they put me in a lunatic asylum for 30 years. And you remember the quote from Lord Acton from the 1880s? In the end, it will ultimately come down to the final battle. The bankers against the people. That battle has been going on silently for hundreds of years.
Yeah. It's just like we were talking before about Five Eyes, the Five Eyes countries.
Five Eyes.
Yeah, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, and the US. Yeah. That's not for our security. That's never been about securing the people of the country or looking after its interests. That's about being able to eavesdrop on the people negotiating trade deals and things like that. It's all economic, nothing to do with, you know, they talk about, oh, we've caught some terrorists here and there. I mean, nothing ever major happens in the world without prior agency, input, or complicity. That's just a fact. You don't get mass shootings because someone decided to wake up one day and thought, you know, I think it's a good idea if I just go shoot everyone. And half of the Muppets in the US, because everyone seems to have a counsellor over there, and they're probably the most heavily drugged country in the world, they have conniptions all the time, and half these people who are found out to be these mass shooters, have a look at who their psychiatrists were and who they worked for. These people are created. You know, they're not just naturally evolve into that. It is. It's evolved now into frequency, where they implant at distance an idea in your head. You think it's yours, but it's not. It didn't originate with you. We had it in New Zealand around the elections when they wanted to take down Muldoon, I think, because he welched on the deal to build a submarine base in Guards Bay and Dusky Sounds. And they used that using IDAPs, and what they do is they'd go near the antennas, Cocoa, Sugarloaf, Tangi Moana, and two others, and that would then beam across your TV and through the radio. And subliminally hidden in there, of course, was them telling you who to vote for, what company products to buy, and things like that. I think it was first tried out in a theatre.
In the 50s, yeah.
In the theatre about Coca-Cola.
It was outlawed.
Yep.
Yeah, it was outlawed in the end. Subliminal.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was in every 12th or 13th frame, where we optically couldn't pick it up, but our subconscious could, so it would formulate.
No, apparently it was effective.
Yeah, it was absolutely effective. It's just like in this whole shock and awe. What they do is, and this is another way to easily program people, they show you a harrowing image, so your mind is aghast and it opens up to make sense of it all. And what they do then is they plant, by doing the overlay, the talk, telling you what you're looking at. So you give up logic and reason for an implanted belief, and then that wraps around, and then they use the layer effect, constant, sustained propaganda, and that becomes a core belief of yours, and you will challenge and fight anyone who goes against that narrative. And that's probably been difficult in the media space, alternative media space, to actually break.
They generally don't believe in what the government says, but they got a negative view of China and Russia.
Yeah.
Not for any reason that they could mention and not throw out, but they just have a negative opinion, and particularly with China, when Trump started mouthing about the Wuhan flu. You know, you're getting like Asians assaulted all over the place in America. Not necessarily Chinese, just people that look Asian, you know. So people's perception of China during that period went up considerably. But, and again, it's the same with Russia. I mean, the Russophobia in the media has been going back, you can chart it relentlessly, at least 200 years.
Yeah.
People don't know what the truth is anymore.
No, that's right. And let's face it, it's like you got a plethora of different views, different opinions, different set of facts.
But people are dealing with the wrong facts. And the way I had Remembrance Day a few weeks ago, Remembrance Day in England, where they commemorated, amongst everything else, the First World War. It went on from 1916 to 1918, and 60 million people died. In 1916, 2 years into the war, the Germans said to the French and the British, look, this is pointless. We're losing, you know, the equipment of our youth. Alright, we're not going anywhere, we're all stuck in trenches, bleeding ourselves dry. Why don't we just all go back to where we started and forget it ever happened? And they went, well, that's a good idea. The 15 million or so that died up to the point, it wasn't enough for the bankers, because their goal was the destruction of the peer competitor, which was Germany. Yep. Just like today, it's Russia. So he said, no, not so fast, I can bring America into the war. And he did. And the war went on for another 2 years. And how much blood is on his hands from 1916 to 1918 for the bankers? And their errand boy, Boris Johnson, has the same thing now. How many boys are going to lose their life since he went over there and continued the war for the bankers?
Every war is a banker war.
Without exception.
Yeah. Just like if people were talking before, and it's exactly 100% correct. If you want to understand geopolitics on a macro scale, you cannot comprehend any of it until you factor in the money masters. Then it starts to make sense. Even the maneuvers start to make sense. Yeah. They definitely pull in the strings. And unfortunately, you know, they target people like us who decide to call them out on their bullshit, because we do it openly and without fear, and that threatens their authority. So I've always admired the sheer grit and determination of Russians. Absolutely. I wish we had that sort of ethos in New Zealand, but unfortunately most of them, like I said, can't tell if they're Arthur or Martha these days. So we've sort of created for the most part a country of wimps.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand Russia a bit better if you read their classic literature, you know?
Yeah.
And they speak to the Russian soul, which we don't understand.
Germany, the same thing, isn't it? Germany, if you actually listen to the speeches that Hitler was giving, they made sense. That's why they wanted to ban it everywhere. Yeah. You know, if that Mike Kempf and all that, if people actually read that, they would actually get an understanding of who the real enemy was. But that wasn't what was sold to the public. So, I mean, any leader who's looking after his population should be commended. He should be backed. And unfortunately, you've got a whole lot of influence peddling operations by the West and their allies in every country. If they don't like the outcome of an election, then all of a sudden there's a coup a little while later, or there's some blackmail or...
I want to ask you about that in terms of your next trip, but before that, I mean, people need to understand that the German people, after the Treaty of Versailles, they all felt that they'd been fucked over. His mandate was to restore German pride,
Yep.
and reverse the punitive effects of the Versailles Treaty, because they didn't start the war, Austria did, but Austria was broke, so they blamed it on Germany and got them to admit war again. So that's what he was intending to do, and if you actually follow the true history of it, you'll find he did everything he could to avoid war. He didn't want war with Britain, we weren't their natural enemy.
Yeah.
He gave Churchill an out after Dunkirk. You know, we don't keep your empire. We don't want it. It's a European affair. You're not involved. Gave him all those opportunities. So it got messy after that. But again, the hand of the bankers, and I mean, it was exactly the same with the Japanese. I mean, the Japanese created their own bank in the 30s. You know, the same model as Hitler was using. But that was exclusively for military spending. They still had another economy. But, you know, if you look at the big enemies at the moment, it's Russia, Iran and China.
That's what's
What have they all got in common?
independent of their banking system.
Indeed. And they've created an alternative system.
Yeah.
We could talk about Trump for a minute. A lot of people, I mean, the guy's full of contradictions. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. I think the thing with Trump is, firstly, I think he's a bit of a simpleton, and he has stupid ideas like these tariffs. He should know better. He just says shit. Most of it is nonsense. But what he's going to find, when he came into power 8 years ago, I mean, he did this whirlwind tour, and he was obviously saying something because all the leaders greeted him, you know, like the Saudi Arabians, the Chinese, the Russians. It was like this was a guy that was coming and saying the right things.
Yeah.
That America was going to change. And he's disappointed, yeah. And people say he's...
Well, he was meant to jail Hillary Clinton, but she didn't get jailed.
Yeah, well, he realised how little power he had. But, you know, and people say, well, he was naive, he didn't know. I mean, he had John Bolton and Michael Pariah. I could have told him what to expect from them. Anybody could have done. For me, look, I'm glad he won, because the alternative was unthinkable. But I think he's getting a pass on his first term. You know, he pulled out of the Missile Defence Treaty with Russia, he pulled out of the JCPOA with Iran, which is part of the reason why they got the problem they have now. He decided that he didn't like the elected government of Venezuela, so he's a new leader. Well, I mean, he was out there on some stuff. Now, whether it was going to be different this time in terms of his domestic policy, I don't know. Lock a few of them up. But he's going to find that, you know, if you look at America's, how did America create its post-World War II order? Well, they controlled the financial system. Bretton Woods, the dollar system, World Bank, okay. So they strangled just about every country. You had to join it, right? You had to provide GDP. They had the perception they had the strongest military in the world. It was hardly dispute. They controlled the energy supplies.
Yep.
Who got it, who didn't. They controlled the raw materials, who did. And they controlled the narrative. They owned the media, you know, the shining city on the hill, the indispensable nation. They controlled all of that. And to a certain extent, Trump still had it when he was there. But now he's going to come in and find out that he didn't control the financial system. His sanctions aren't going to work. They didn't work the first fucking time. They're not going to work again. They haven't got that power.
That's right.
The BRICS system's been set up and all this talk, it's bullshit. They're fucked. China's already cut off the sale of a number of rare earths that's going to shut down some of their industries for dual use.
Absolutely.
That's the start. That's their trump card. But he's going to find the financial system's out there, graft. They've demonstratively not got the strongest military anymore. All the good guys have got most of the energy and the raw materials. There's nothing he can do about it.
That's right.
but they've lost the narrative. Right? That's why people don't believe it anymore. It's clear what's happening.
Yeah.
So, I think what Trump's, I'm going to ask you a few comments, but I think what Trump's going to find is it's a new world. And he hasn't got the clout or the influence that he thinks he has. Because no one trusts him. How's he going to make a deal with Russia? They had Minsk, they broke it. He had a deal with the Iranians, he broke it. No one trusts him there. What did Lavrov call that? Agreement incapable.
Yeah.
So, give me your take on that, on Trump and everything.
Trump's well, he's a mixed bag, really. I've been following it from all different angles. I look at what everyone's saying from all different angles. On one hand, you've got people who are saying that it's basically a military operation, where Trump has been the president since he got elected right the way through, even the stolen one in 2020, which there's now an abundance of proof of. But then you've got the other school of thought, where he is the soft sell to the alternative, which is your World Economic Forum. You know, we're going to basically, you're all hackable animals, we're going to program you, we're going to rule every aspect of your life. So everyone thinks when Trump comes along, he's going to save the day. I'm still in two minds about it. I discount nothing out of hand without absolute evidence. I agree that America isn't as powerful as they portray. That's mainly just in the movies. They've never single-handedly won a war in its entire history. Even its own civil war, it had to get the French help. So they couldn't win in Vietnam. They couldn't win in Afghanistan. And they won't win anywhere else on their own. They just can't do it.
They messed the Grenadians up.
Oh yeah, but that's small, wasn't it, really?
Well, it was 80 students demonstrated.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't even do a successful Bay of Pigs invasion, could they? Comedy of errors.
No, it's reassuring that the bad guys, everything they do, they fuck up. I mean, including everything that they're doing now, they get everything wrong.
Yeah, I don't get their economic platform either. I don't understand it, because they're still running the same system that is designed, like you say, to decide who gets what and who's allocated what. I mean, people think countries, they believe these boom and bust cycles. That's central bank controlled. Central banks decide your future. And no central bank, very few in the world, actually belong to anyone other than the same people. They own the lot. And only those who step out the system, like you rightfully pointed out, are targeted for regime change, colour revolutions, whatever it is. So until you actually fumigate the parasites called bankers, you're going to continue to have these problems. It's just exactly the way it is. People go, oh, that's anti-Semitism. I didn't mention Jews, although I'm going to now. And they're not real Jews anyway. They're what I call the usurper Jews. They're like the cuckoo birds of humanity. They go in there, kick people out of their nest, and pretend they had it all the time. And that's exactly what's happened in Israel.
The purpose, paraphrasing, but the purpose of central banks is to bleed the productive sector of the economy.
Yeah.
Through using it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And every income tax dollar goes to pay the interest on the loans that were generated off the back of the people, because they go, okay, how many people you got? Okay, what's their working life? Right, we can tax them probably this much over the entire working life, so that will justify this as security for those loans. We've got a Reserve Bank of New Zealand, but yet the government doesn't bank with it. They bank with bloody Westpac, an Australian bank. The police if you have to pay a fine to the police, it's a Westpac account. Because they're all just businesses. In 1986, New Zealand had a bloodless coup against its people. We were supposedly meant to become independent from Britain. That never happened. Well, it did happen, but it didn't, because now it's all titular title. They still give the air of still being part of Britain, but in 1986, with the passing of the New Zealand Constitution Act, 1986, it's an act. It's a cobbling together of like a Bill of Rights that they can trample on whenever they want, because they just use an article in there that states, in emergencies, we can disband your civil liberties. Well, if the government has to give you rights, they're not really rights, they're privileges, and can be taken just as easy. And my whole thing is, hang on a minute, you're meant to be a facilitator, not a dictator. You're meant to do as we tell you. Because how parliamentary systems are meant to work is they're meant to take the common will of the people into parliament, elect the uncommon intelligence to carry out the will of the people. That just doesn't happen. They get their marching orders from the time they go in, because the bureaucracy, who we never vote in and out, are always there. They just come and go like tides. And the corruption continues.
Edward G. Griffin, back to dear Eddie, he did a great piece, because he was the United Nations watcher. He was like, the UN is the New World Order.
Yep.
It's not monolithic with a castle and a king, you know, you won't even know it. And he was looking at the UN, and it was like what the law was and what the UN rights were.
Yeah.
So these are the rights, they all sounded like really great, you know, humanity and freedom and all that. And then over a period of time, they just introduced at the end of everything, unless prescribed by law, which completely changed it. Which means that, well, this can happen if we let you.
Yeah. Well, look, in New Zealand we have our Parliament ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and also the Vienna Convention Law and Treaties. Article 27 of the Vienna Convention locks them into the ICCPR, where no domestic law is ever allowed to supersede the dictates within that, because it's a covenant, it's a treaty. Yeah. But they just dispense with it whenever they want. Like you said before, these people make these agreements that they have no intent on ever honouring. Yeah. If it doesn't suit the purpose, then it's thrown out like yesterday's newspaper.
You know, for all its flaws, we were speaking about the American Constitution.
It's probably
it has some good things. So, for example, in a jurisdiction, the highest law enforcement official in the land for that jurisdiction is the local elected sheriff.
Yep, correct.
Right, he can bugger off the FBI, anybody in theory, right?
That's right.
He is the law of that, and he is elected by the people. We're gonna, you know, we were going back to where you were talking about the right in government, and you know, and Andrew and Adrian, Bill, they're all saying the same thing. The system is completely buggered.
The system has to be destroyed. No two ways about it.
What the key witness is going to be another system. All right. More important than what that system is who picks it.
Yeah.
You know. And
the people always denied that option.
Right, well, the new system, it's got to be based on the fact that there's a lot of communities of people that get together and control at a local level.
That's right.
You know, because there is a central government, but it's still, you know, a collection of local communities. You know, even cities.
Like the Swiss canton system.
Yeah. So
without the corruption through the International Bank of Settlements, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, the amazing thing is the central banking system as it exists is the big challenge. If that continues, you know, I think it will continue for a while in the West, but eventually it will just run.
Yeah. Well, people believe it's real. That's the problem. People believe that this digital currency or this piece of paper that they give you is somehow magically powerful and it's going to give you everything you want.
It's all an illusion.
People used to access their resources all the time, and then someone comes along and says, hey, we've got to get some order here. Never mind, it's been working fine for thousands of years, but we've got to get some order here. So you come and buy a chit off me and you can then go in and get whatever you want. These are the gatekeepers. And then, oh, you can't buy it, dumb right? Well, I'll loan it to you. You just pay me back some of your resources that you're about to bring out that you'd normally get for free to take home anyway. And that's how it started building up. People are creating barriers because they lack the ethic or the work ethic to go and do for themselves or to produce something. We were talking before, and you're dead right. There are so many leeches in the system. I think in New Zealand, of one working man, you got 5 leeches. You know, like questionnaires that come and they say to you, how many beneficiaries do you have? Straight away people think children. Well, our beneficiaries, politicians are our beneficiaries, aren't they? They leech off us. Even the police. who are the henchmen for the government. The courts rubber stamp their bullshit. None of them working for us. The government hates us, and as soon as people realise that, the better. Once you realise your government's out to destroy you, use you until you have no further use, then put you out of pasture or knock you off, then you're just not going to get it. And Trump, like I said, Samantha Costello's done some good work on exposing a lot of that. She gets lambasted left, right and centre because she has the cheek to shatter people's illusions, because people want a hero. They want someone else to fight for them. They want someone else to do the dirty work and then claim that they supported them all along. Problem is, the people around Trump aren't there for the interest of the people. If you have a look at their connections, it will keep Big Pharma going. It will keep the war machine going. It will keep the bankers in place. I mean, if you haven't got control of those, what have you got? I've always said there's 5 arteries that feed the lifeblood of any economy, and that's something the country must control. If you give it if you privatize it, your country's toast. That's finances, transport, energy, water, and communication.
Like China.
Yeah, exactly.
The social hierarchy of needs, the things that determine, your cost of living and how much money you've actually got disposable in your pocket.
Yeah.
So transportation, education, healthcare, communications, transport, all of that. Yeah. They're stay at home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're not run primarily for a profit. They're not supposed to lose money.
That's right.
Okay, but these are what people need, so they're provided. Now, people talk about communist China, bollocks. Okay, none of them are free. You pay for them. All right, but they're affordable. Apart from public education, like high school, if you go into a hospital, you pay for it, but you can afford it. It's not much, it's not a business.
People always talk about free education, but someone pays for it somewhere.
Say free to the Chinese, they jump all over it. Nothing free, just question who pays for it.
Exactly.
It's like the Americans are on about like socialised healthcare in England and it's free. Fuck all, it's free. It's just a question of who pays for it and how.
And who else you're stealing from to pay the other.
Exactly. I mean, so, you're talking about the absurdity of that banking system. So you had 2008, you had the financial crisis. All the Wall Street banks, lost their bets, all going up. So the government bails them out with taxpayer money. We were on the hook.
Yeah.
All right. So the banks can lend it back to them.
Yeah.
Usually.
And rehook them.
Right.
It's just they're just recycling. It's just like people with their properties. They let's look at farmers actually, because farmers are under attack. It's the topic of the day. Farmers get financed and they start producing because the country can't do anything without food. Farmers in New Zealand especially have been the backbone of every economic recovery we've had. Without them, the country's gone. Considering they've just destroyed our only refinery, now they've closed that down. So our energy supplies aren't in a good shape. But farmers are targeted constantly by the banks. They give them loans and favourable conditions. Then they wait for a bad year, whether adverse or whatever, and they raise the interest rates, call in loans and that, and they basically just recycle the same land to a new set of people. It's criminal. It's actually criminal.
What they did in America in like the 1920s, like when they started. Now you've got Kansas farmers.
Yep.
And they say, oh well, you've got the train now. You can ship it up to Chicago and get 3 times as much. You need a tractor. I can't afford a tractor. Sure you can. Then they drop the price of the grain. All right, you can't afford the tractor, and they end up with the land. I've been doing it forever.
Exactly.
Listen, on that. So look, we agree entirely on where the core of this problem is, but the good part about this is what history has shown us is that when countries move away from the system of usury,
they prosper.
Public banking.
Yeah.
Not just do they prosper, but they prosper at an accelerated rate.
Exactly.
You feel it almost immediately.
Yeah.
And that's been demonstrated, in so many different cases.
So you can't take from an economy more than you put in, and bankers put in a certain amount, but they take out a hell of a lot more.
If you look at China, one of the things that is state controlled is banking, because they look at banking the same way they look at it's a public utility. It's there to serve the economy and the people.
Yeah.
Which is the complete reverse of in the West. Whereas the bankers think the people there are just to feed them all their productivity. You're there to work for the bankers.
Yeah, well, banking or the money was only ever meant to be part of the transportation system to allow goods and services at an agreed value to transact from one hand to another. It was never meant to be the commodity itself. And of course, with the invent or installation of the central banking system, which destroys every country, and the foreign exchange components, I mean, you know, we did that in New Zealand. We decided to float our dollar through Rogernomics because he's a complete clown. He was on a payroll as well, $10,000 a month he was getting paid to destroy our country. And most of these people get knights and damehoods and all that. So anyone in New Zealand that you look back and they've got a sir or a dame beside them, they've well and truly shafted us. There's only the brainy ones who turn it down so it doesn't look like they have, but they usually have as well. And that's the answer. If you can kill the current banking system, centralize your bank and put it in the hands of Treasury, then you'll start getting somewhere. You cannot have it as a separate entity.
No, it has to be a public utility.
Exactly.
Right? It's a thing.
Every community group does it. A soccer team has a treasurer.
Yeah.
A school has a treasurer because it's the public purse.
Well, the thing
That
is
is not
don't have
that.
A system usually, okay, what you don't have is inflation, so you have stable money.
That's right.
Ron Paul told me this, Ron Paul.
Yeah.
That before the Federal Reserve System, so in 1800, what you got for $1, you still got for $1 in 1900.
Yeah.
Okay, because it should actually be stable, but what? That's a question of, is like making sure you got the right amount of circulation, money in circulation, alright, to encourage and facilitate trade, but not so much that you create inflation.
Yeah.
That's simple. They overcomplicate economics. It's actually very simple. Yeah, and the Chinese have got it down. So that's the development example that these countries will move. Now, you're not going to kill the Federal Reserve System. You can't change it. What happens is, what's happening now, you create an alternative that in time makes the old model obsolete, and it just withers.
Yeah, I'm not really a crypto guy either. I've seen that writing on the wall for a long time.
I always thought it was a scam.
It is. I mean, it's money laundering. It's more money laundering. It's a way for people to. It's just like art. Yeah. Art's money laundering. You know, if you want to give someone money without duty or taxes, you simply tell them, get a little napkin, draw a little picture, scribble your name at the bottom, and I'll give you $1 million, because art is worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. Yeah. So it can't be quantified.
When I first saw it, and of course, like, I mean, even Alex way back was talking about the digital currency, right?
Yeah.
So when they come out with Bitcoin, it's like, look, if you wanted to soften people up to accept digital currency, this is how you do it. So I always thought it was a scam. On the flip side, I'm just bitter. I didn't fucking buy it when I first saw it. It was about $25 or something, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, so Pepe said the same thing when we were up here talking, and somebody asked him a crypto question, and I've got enough.
But look at the Muppets who bought Bitcoin at like 99,000 and it dropped to 27. Hello. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well, no, the big money
just up and down around there now.
Look, so much big money in it now that it's being manipulated.
Absolutely.
That's, indisputable.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to sound bitter about Bitcoin, but I hate hearing about that shit.
Yeah.
So listen, here's
turn the power off, it's over anyway.
Here's what I would to ask you that we haven't got into any depth on. We were talking earlier about there's 3 flashpoints in the world right now. Obviously Ukraine, obviously the Middle East.
Yep.
Asia we don't think. Right? I'm not worried about anything happening imminently in Asia.
Yeah.
Now, there may be some sort of black flag, who knows what they think, but that doesn't seem to be a flashpoint at the moment.
That's right.
But the other flashpoint is Eastern Europe.
Definitely.
And you're going over to Budapest in a couple of days, right? And you've got a tour. Tell us about that. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, we'll be flying to Budapest because it's basically got to watch our pennies because we're not with central bankers and can take everyone's money off them. So we're going to Budapest, and then from there we'll take a train up to Slovakia. We want to see the Prime Minister, who was, of course, the attempted assassination on him, because he has the guts to say the right thing, stand up and stand his ground. What he does domestically, we don't know, but at least he's saying all the right things, and not just that, his actions are matching it from what we can see at this stage. So it'll be good to try and get an interview with him, because the people need to know things from his side without the mainstream media lens, which, as we know, it just muddies everything. And the other point is Romania. Romania is very interesting because they had an election where they have a new leader, but their powers that be are trying to invalidate that. We've interviewed previously a senator up there, Diana, who has gone into Parliament wearing a muzzle because they're always trying to silence her. So she goes in with a dog muzzle on. Very charismatic. She's a what you call a firebrand. She's just out there, and I think they ruled out her ability to run for the highest office there because they call her far right and extreme. So actually, she's got more common sense and logic than most people I've spoken to. And again, it's people like that will eventually change things, because courage is contagious, as they say. And when people realise there's someone fighting and they're still standing, they're willing to go a little bit, you know what I mean? Because it's always one who breaks through, and then people come up to there, but they go no further. So you've always got the people who will lead, whether it's the good way or the bad way. That's the problem, because I don't care what people say, I want to see their actions and see what they do. Unfortunately, a lot of words by a lot of politicians around the world sound flowery, they sound great, everyone rah-rah, but as soon as they get in, they're just lost. Well, they're captured, let's face it. Half of them are usually just plants anyway, who've got no intention of delivering on what they say. So Europe's definitely a place that could actually implode a little. I can't see the European Union lasting too long, to be honest. I really can't. Too many people are not happy about the control of the European Parliament, because it's an unelected body. It never actually got there. I mean, they tried to put it through the Lisbon Treaty and all that, and they got, I think it was the Irish said no, and then I think it was the Dutch or something that said no, so they went ahead with it anyway, because it was always a foregone conclusion they were going to do it as part of their plan. And come hell or high water, they implement these things. I mean, in New Zealand we have referendums. None of them are binding, they're indicative only. So if 80% of us say we want this, they go, thanks for that, but no, we've got our plan here and we're going to do it, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just lip service. Our inquiries are just lip service. No one's ever held to account. Just like this whole COVID stuff, we won't even go into it because everyone knows about the scam there. But in New Zealand we have 2 inquiries going on. One that the government promised to do, which is are basically just finished. It's a whitewash with a whole lot of recommendations that none of them will carry out. I think the inquiries were basically just to find out, okay, how did we mess up, and how did we fail to capture all you and have you all jabbed last time? That's really what it's about. Okay, thanks for that. Right, we'll do better, and we'll skirt around that, and we'll get most of you next time. And the second inquiry was from one that promised the freedom movement that he would go and deliver. Well, he hasn't. There's another all-talk fluff piece, and he's doing everything diametrically opposed. Oh, you get your inquiry, and the terms of reference are slightly better. But that's the problem with inquiries. Who sets the terms of reference? What they should be doing, they should be expanded to who knew what, bank accounts, money transfers, contracts, everything. Everything should be out in the open, and there should be powers of arrest and prosecution, because half those pricks belong in jail. And if we had a death penalty in our country, it was removed because politicians knew they'd be guilty of treason. I'd volunteer to hang the bastards myself.
I sometimes fantasise about different ways. I've got a whole list and fantasise about different ways that they should be killed.
Yeah, we say it is, of course, but that's how we feel.
Hillary Clinton, I was thinking about staking her out on sand and pouring honey over her and letting the red ants take their time. But I decided that was too good for it.
Or a rat under a metal bucket.
Yeah.
And heat the bucket up so they have to chew through you to get out.
No, I do.
That's
like,
a good one.
On the subject of...
Cut the back, bottom of the back of the neck, put a fish hook in there and just rip the spine out like a zip. That's a good one.
If there was any justice in this world, there would be public executions for all those involved in the COVID genocide. Attempted annihilation of the human race and the poison of future generations.
That's exactly what's happening.
There should be public executions. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we need a deterrent here. We're watching.
Yeah.
But people have to take some responsibility. We fell asleep at the wheel and that all is happening. You know what I mean? When the governments run wild, okay, that's got to stop.
Well, that's how it happened, wasn't it? It was incremental encroachments on the rights and freedoms we should have had. But because it's done little by little in those incremental steps, and then they sell each step as something plausible, you think, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And before you wake up and realise, you've already had the prison built around, and all they have to do is close the door.
Yeah.
Because they always let you see the escape. They build everything else, and then you don't have an escape. And you wonder how you got there. Simple, you just didn't listen to people like us who've been banging on about it, trying to tell you for ages. Maybe it's our delivery, who knows? But I definitely think there's a lot of captured minds out there.
Well, there is, but you know, again, I think there's more people who are awake. I think we're just using the wrong metrics to measure them.
Yeah.
If you ask people, do they believe what they're being told? Most people are going to say, no, I don't believe the government, I don't believe it. I still watch it.
Yeah.
They're not critical thinkers, but they want to think they are.
Yeah.
If you start asking people, are you satisfied with this explanation? So there's more people that are awake than we know.
Yeah.
We're just
and that's
using...
important for this.
Yeah. Andrew Budgeon said, people think you can't talk to people about it until you do.
Yeah.
You know? Until you do.
Yeah.
And, you know, once the lies stop working, you know, we have this situation where none of the institutions of authority that work based on our respect of that, like the government, like the media, like the health service, like education, when none of the institutions that you're supposed to trust have your trust anymore, what happens when you don't trust anything?
Well, the key's in the word institution.
Yeah.
Everyone becomes institutionalized.
Yes.
It's just like the education system. It's not there to educate. It's there to create a binding narrative and examinations when you go for your tests or exams. They're not designed to see how intelligent you are. They're there to see what level of brainwashing you've received.
Well,
and that's why you get PhDs and degrees, so you can go out and propagate the bullshit.
You're going to love our new program on that. Wait till you read it, everything you just said. But, you know, talking about what comes next, you know, there's something that's actually got like a really bad word, which is technocracy. The technocracy is, you know, essentially the government is run by people who are capable and know about what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
The EU is supposed to be a technocracy, it isn't, because the technocrats are supposed to have skills. They haven't got any.
They don't know.
And to a certain extent, China's a technocracy. I mean, the people that rise to the top in China, you know, are the best of the buyers to get to that point and really have to stand out. The problem with tech, in terms of, I'd say, for example, Trump appoints Robert Kennedy to regulate the health people. That's technocracy. Good. The guy's actually he understands the subject, he understands the problem, so you pick someone, you know, from outside the political sphere who wasn't elected to it, to do a particular job for a particular reason. So it's always got like a bad connotation when they're talking about, for example, the EU. But the question is, who picks the technocrats and who do they answer to?
Yeah.
Because if the people pick the technocrats, okay, and that technocrat understands that the people he answers to, his bosses, are those people, then that sounds okay to me. Because this beauty contest, this absurdity that we call these elections, that shit's got to go. Even Socrates had that, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are not educated or wise enough or informed enough to make good decisions. The choices are made on popularity and persuasive arguments rather than virtue and ability.
Yeah. Exactly. You know, no one cares if you can perform the job or not, or if you've got the moral fortitude to carry it out. They don't care about that. It's, do you look in the suit, and do you say the fluffy words that they want to hear, even if they don't bloody believe you. They just love being lied to. People love being lied to. They want a hero. They want someone to do everything for them. They're too fucking lazy to do it themselves. And we've got our own shit. We created this. You know, we created the rod for our own back. We let these animals get loose in the halls of power, and now they've solidified their fortress, and it's going to be a job fumigating them. Yeah. But this way now travels. I think it's important that people understand that when you get out of your echo chamber and you actually go to different countries and you talk to people, you're exactly the same.
Sure.
You have the same hopes and dreams. You have the same wants and desires. You know, I always said a government is there to facilitate, not dictate. They're to take care of need and necessity. Your wants and desires you take care of. Problem is, the wants and desires by the globalist parasites, not the elite, I call them parasites, they decide through the government what you will have and what you won't have.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. I mean, these people are like marionettes to the puppeteer. They dance the tunes, and if they don't, they're out. Something befalls them. Our only decent Prime Minister I think we had was Norman Kirk. They killed him. So, I think the sodium morphate they used.
Well, the only decent one Australia had was, oh God, what was his name now?
Is he the one who was working with Kirk to save Australia as well?
76. This was,
Kirk, I think, was 74 to 74.
Anyway, he wanted to make Australia a republic.
Yeah, they're working together.
Yeah, and then like the Queen stepped in and had the Governor General fire him.
Yep, Governor General Kerr, who received $200,000 payment to do
his
that.
Name on there. No, it's before that. They'll come to me. And Bush, as you
Whitlam. Gough
Whitlam. Yeah.
Governor General Kerr, was paid $200,000 to sack the Whitlam government.
So it overturns the democratic will of the voters, and that's exactly what they're trying to do now in Romania, Germany, France.
Yep. Anyone put their head above the parapet?
I know all this talk about like their love of democracy and everything until it happens.
Yeah.
And we've got to stop using their language, far right, you know.
Oh, exactly.
What does that even mean anymore? Might actually call them a critical thinkers party.
Yeah, just call me absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because
you look at these lefties, and it's whatever side you're on, without knowing anything about them, I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you notice, though, just as an aside, do you notice that a lot of these people who identify as left-wing Marxist socialist revolutionaries are ugly?
Oh, yeah.
They're actually like, half of them look like their parents had sex with a parakeet, blue hair and tie-dyed and shit. It's incredible. Can't believe it.
Well, it's also...
It's like a lab experiment gone wrong.
Well, it's like if you look at radical feminists, they also, generally speaking, are the most attractive of girls.
Yeah.
And their movement is primarily driven by anger and self-hatred.
Yeah.
That's why you never see a happy feminist.
Yeah.
Right, is there anybody else? Yeah, let's see if there's anybody else we can offend on this.
I think we can.
I think once you've achieved a certain vintage in life as a guy, I think it's an obligation to offend.
Oh yeah, I think I naturally offend anyway because I tell the truth, and that's not very popular these days.
Right.
I say what everyone thinks. Half the time I say things they don't think, but I'll do it anyway. If I believe I'm right, I'll stay on my ground regardless of the cost. And facing 14 years in jail at the moment because I stood against something. That's fine.
14 years?
Yeah. Allegedly, we shared a link to a foreign investigative documentary website that shows that the official narrative of March 15th, 2019, the Christchurch fiasco, the government wasn't lived up to their ears. and the multiple Tarrants and the SIS involvement, Security Intelligence Service, and the people getting bussed in to take part in this play. We released the footage of the training where, you know, they're going through the mosque like it's just been attacked, and there's a supposed dead guy over to the left in a green jacket, and he suddenly springs back to life, looks on his phone, gets up, walks over there, dies again.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the squib on the ground where they spray the blood, it's just no bullet holes anywhere.
Let me ask you a question. Have they charged you?
Yeah, yeah.
What's the charge?
Distribution of objectionable material. But we didn't distribute anything. It was apparently a link
You're
overseas that
gonna have
contained the video
Right.
that was streamed that the government wanted banned almost immediately, and the manifesto. The manifesto was written by a left-wing eco-fascist think tank, by the way. Nothing to do with far-right anything, because this guy talks about global warming, talks about wanting to take guns off you. No far-right guy under their description would ever want that, so that's bullshit. And the video itself, you might as well be player one Nintendo game.
Are you gonna? There'll be a jury trial.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, but I've elected, I want a trial by jury, not a jury trial. Two
You
different
want a
things.
trial by jury?
Yeah. I'll
Do
probably
you
stack
know
that though.
something you can quote if the judge will let you? Is that as you walk into the Old Bailey in London, there is a mural and a dedication there to a bunch of Quakers who were supposed to be, who were sequestered to be on the jury when they were trying the guy for something. And they thought he actually did it, but they didn't think it should be a crime. They invalidated the law.
Yeah,
So they
that's
said,
what juries
well,
are meant to do.
He did it, but we can't see why it's a crime. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And they put these jury in prison because they refused to convict on something they thought was unjust.
Yeah,
That's always a good. If
that's
the
what
judge
jury's
will
meant to
let-
do.
But if jury, you know, that's one of those good things if the jury will speak to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what juries are meant to do. They can decide fact and law right there,
Yeah.
and they can overrule the judge.
Well, listen, I don't want to
Unfortunately,
be.
in our country,
I don't want to be
it's-
flippant about you getting banged up. But I don't think you're going to jail for 14 years. I think you're going to jail at all.
See what happens.
No.
They're determined, trust me.
If you get a chance to talk to a jury, you'll get off. In fact, I think you'll probably enjoy it.
Well, they raided us to try and get all the information they thought we had. But with my background, I knew I don't keep it on me. I keep it in a safe location. So when I'm ready, I will drop it, and I'll have eagle over their face.
So, listen, wrap up here. Tell me what you're doing now in terms of your activism with all this in New Zealand.
Yeah, like I said, we're now building up Pariah Media.
Yeah.
Because we're like outcasts. Even amongst the so-called freedom movement, because a lot of them, believe it or not, are actually quite dumb and quite dense. They don't question anything outside their own echo chamber, and and a lot of the things they tell us we already know. So we're giving them an alternative to look at as well, to get a wider range of perspective. But some of them don't sort of want that. And if you challenge their local deity that they've picked to be their hero, you're lambasted from pillar to post. You've got these trolls set up, government plants and that online, that do nothing but attack all the time. It's just ruthless attacks, baseless allegations, and you say, well, can you provide proof for that? And they go on to somebody else because they can't. So we're sort of standing against the grain. One of the only... Counterspin Media was basically stood alone to combat everything. Now Pariah's there as well. I co-founded the first one with Hannah Spera. She's carrying on with Counterspin. Samantha and I are doing Pariah Media, and that will probably be... That's a lot more hard-hitting, factual, and in your face. Yeah,
I look forward to seeing it. And I have to tell you, Pariah Media, what a cool name. Yeah. That's
it's got a black and white. It's got a circle and black and white image of my face. So, just to remind them who's coming for them.
Well, we spoke about, a lot of us in this truth community, we're kind of siloed and there's enough cross-pollination.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, we speak to you and we find out how many mutual friends and contacts that we got.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible.
So,
and that's the key. Groups like this can change communities. Communities can change society.
Yeah.
And then it makes the string pullers obsolete when no one's doing what they're told.
Do you know what? The diversity of this group is amazing. And if you look at what the common denominator is, it's basically that we're critical thinkers, but what unites us isn't our differences. The things that drive people apart are always little things. On the big things, we all agree.
Yeah.
So if you look at the BRICS, how do you bring Iran, Russia, China, India, and all these diverse countries together to agree on something? You don't agree on everything, but you agree on basic fundamental principles.
Exactly.
Respect for sovereignty, no interference, all these basic human things. And
Something the
as
West
you were
has still
saying,
lost the plot on.
when you travel to all these different countries, you'll see the reason why everybody's fine and friendly and we're all pretty much the same. It's because we all share basic human principles.
Yeah.
It's our society that attempts to distort those.
Even last night, you had people from all over the world pretty much here. Everyone gets on.
Yeah.
No one, what would normally be politically, they'd be adversaries. Here, they're fine. It just goes to show, like you say, if you've got some knowledge and you've got mutual respect for each other and a contest and sharing of ideas, which is what our university should have been doing, but now it's just propaganda brainwashing, then things make sense and it works. But I think we're still, number one focus for everyone should be killing the banking system and freeing yourselves.
Amen to that. Well, I think things are in order. That's the situation that's going to take care of itself. The sooner the better. The encouraging thing is that, look, there isn't going to be any new world order like they thought 30 years in the 2000s. There is a better world beckoning with the BRICS grouping, and that is the global majority. We are not part of this Western sort of global minority, and so that we have cause for optimism. We are living through the end of the age of empires, and at least for the foreseeable future, once these assholes are gone, the conditions for another empire to emerge won't exist for a long time.
Yeah, in every country you'll find someone who doesn't like the government or doesn't like another group of people. That's just natural. But unfortunately, it's been exacerbated in the mainstream media, or legacy media we call it, to propagate that as if it's some massive thing or some big uprising. It's just like your neighbour gets angry at you, they'll put all the cameras on the neighbour going off like that. Oh, there's a revolution starting. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's basically all it is.
Wag the dog.
Yeah, the people should actually watch that movie, Wag the Dog. It's very, very good. And I
was telling Dennis actually about it last night. I mean, how far does that go back? I mean, what was the first TV war? Vietnam.
Yeah.
That went badly for them. But the first one when they really managed it was like the first CNN war, wasn't it?
Yeah, Gulf War. Yeah. Where they decided to embed people in and show beachheads where they had no resistance anyway. I mean,
no, they were in like the Hilton somewhere, then it was all fake and CGI.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, well listen, I want you to do me a favour. Let me know when you get back what you made of Eastern Europe and what's going on there, because that and the EU, that is a flashpoint.
Yeah, it's going to be. It started already.
Well, I think what we're seeing is what Pepe was talking about the SCO meeting that they had and this new security architecture.
Yeah.
It's to deal with what they know is going to be their next phase of war, which is colour revolutions, coups, acts of terrorism throughout that area. I think that's what this is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they'll already have the next bogeyman lined up, and already have the next saviour lined up as well. Because that's how they play it.
You're the man.
Good to see you.
You too.